People who have been straight up fired on the spot. What happened? Chef here. Got fired because I sent a steak out that had char on it. The only char on it was grill marks. Okay lady. I worked at a meat market deli. It was my first day in the deli section. And with very minimal training. My supervisor just decided to take off for some tea. Well, that didn't stop customers coming in. One guy was unhappy that his cheese wasn't cut properly, as it was like my third time using the cutting thing, and complained. That's all it took. Everyone was fired in one fell swoop. They decided to stop having our work from home department. It explained why I'd spent the last 2 weeks training people who they'd originally said were not eligible to work my job. I handed my boss my 2-week notice and she ripped it in half and said don't bother. You're done today. HQ wasn't too thrilled with her decision as they had to pay me a severance because of her hatred towards me. Worked at a call center. Telemarketing. It was my grandmother's birthday. We didn't hit sales quota for the day. The boss told me I had to stay until we hit. I told him family was more important. Got fired immediately. I came back to my summer job at an amusement park from missing 3 days with strep throat. Handed in my doctor's excuse. And was fired for missing work. Apparently to call off you couldn't just talk to a manager. You had to talk to the department head. A person I had never met with a phone number that had never been made available to me. Because I missed more than 2 days. It didn't matter that I had a note because I was considered a no-call no-show. The assistant manager I gave my excuse to handed me a letter back that said I had 10 minutes to clean out my locker and vacate the premises or they'd call the cops for trespassing. I was 16. In a state with very liberal employment laws. And my mom retained a lawyer. I didn't win any money but they ended up having to list me as rehireable in their system and they paid a huge fine for essentially making it impossible for employees to call in sick. Was working in the deli counter of a supermarket. Asked from my closest manager that if I could come next week on Thursday 2 hours later because I had a final exam that morning. Got fired on the spot. Don't bother coming to work tomorrow. You're fired. Oh. I was told Friday out of nowhere we won't be needing your services anymore after being told in November I would have a position into next year at the minimum. So that's a fun holiday gift. Edit. I have applied to a lot of places since Friday and have decent credentials for my age so I should be okay. I was fresh out of college at an IT contract to hire job. I came in on a Tuesday. Sat down at my desk. The boss owner came up behind me and told me I was fired. I sat there. Mouth open. And then asked. Why? He said that I was not a good fit for the company and that I had to leave. So I gathered my things and he stood there watching me, probably making sure I did not steal anything, and escorted me out of the office. I found out later that because of the size of the company. At the time, they were looking for a tier II worker. But I was a tier I. I told them this in the interview. But apparently they did not have the resources to train me. Well, joke's on them. I went through a month of unemployment and I found an even better IT job where I make a lot of money and work only half as hard as the job. I told my manager at a fast food place that I was going to be looking for a new job. And to not schedule me after this pay period. The next week, I see my name on the schedule and ask her what the deal is. I told you I was going to get a new job and not to schedule me. Well, did you get a new job yet? No. But I'm still not sticking around this one. Well, you know what? You can just not come back here now with that attitude. She sure showed me. I was working for a small family-owned restaurant. All the wait staff and most of the kitchen staff was family or friends with the owner. I was hired as a waitress. And I did okay. Not great. Not terrible. It was my first time being a waitress. One day, one of their regular customers came in. Who is a bit of a local celebrity. He apparently came in once or twice a week. And tipped very well. Normally the owner's daughter would take the table, but she was out sick so I took them. I got an amazing tip from him. And he told the owner that he would like me to wait on them if I am available in the future. The second he left I was fired. Fired a person for disappearing on their first day of work for a couple of hours. We worked in a manufacturing plant and he took off to try to find some cute girl he knew that worked there. The guy was married and he asked, what am I supposed to tell my wife? I said, probably not the truth. Me and my friend were two young Irish lads working on rebuilding the Canary Wharf Tower in London, which had been blown up by some other Irish lads a year earlier. But that's another story. It was like the Nakatomi Plaza. There were so many floors. If you didn't feel like working, you could just go to some random floor and hide out for a while. So me and my friend, both 18 years old, were hungover one morning. We went to the 23rd floor where there was a comfortable couch and we lay there smoking weed. Suddenly the English foreman appears and fires us on the spot. As he was walking away, he says that was taking the piss. Lads. Unfortunately, there was somewhat of a misunderstanding here. What he meant was that our behavior was so bad we had crossed a line. However, in Ireland at that time, that was taking the piss meant I'm only joking. So we continued working for another 3 or 4 hours before he came back and said, I fired you this morning. What the hell are you still doing here? The summer between undergrad and graduate school, I was working in the customer service department of a Canadian department store. I got minimum wage plus $1 extra an hour because I was the only person capable of answering the phones in English and French. I asked for a Saturday off to attend my sister's high school graduation. They said, what's more important to you, this job or the graduation? I said, well, the graduation actually. Particularly in light of the fact that I was starting my second degree in another city about 10 weeks later. Asked immediately, well, good luck finding a bilingual Albertan willing to work for minimum wage plus $1. You stupid cocksuckers. Not me, but my brothers. He was valeting at a fancy beach club over the summer, and they hired a new kid from the area. The first car this new hire gets into, he backs into another car. My brother takes him to the side, tells him to calm down. The beach has insurance for this very reason. It's no big deal. Second car. He runs right into a parked car, which causes that car to smash into the one parked in front of it. My brother gives him $50 cash for the day of work and tells him not to come back. I was 15, I think. I was a lifeguard at a subdivision pool. Being the new guy and the young kid, I worked every weekend. Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday day. I had already missed going to my grandparents a couple of times, and my parents were taking a vacation. I asked off and was told that I couldn't go. My dad basically said, you are going. I don't care. I told the boss this and she said, you still have to work. I left with my parents. And when I got back there were a dozen messages on my parents' answering machine saying that they couldn't open the pool because I wasn't there. She fired me 3 or 4 times that weekend. She was a bored housewife hired by the hoe to schedule the lifeguards who were mostly high school kids. She fired another for wearing a bikini. They didn't use her the next year. But by that point in time I was 16 and had a better job. I was told that my position was being terminated. Not just at our branch but company-wide. And was escorted back to my office to pack up my stuff. It wasn't dramatic or anything. But it was a shock. I didn't get to say goodbye to anybody. Just 2 days prior, I'd had my performance review and received glowing praise. While the entire time, they knew they'd be letting me go in a couple of days. That's what bothered me the most. I forgot to pay for a hot dog I ate the previous day of work. I had the money to pay and I would have if they asked me to. It genuinely slipped my mind, but the manager was treating me as a serious thief. Kinda sucked, but the job was pretty terrible too. Retail usually is. Edit. I should probably clarify that some of my co-workers had this happen to them before I was fired, but the difference being was that they got warnings. It doesn't bother me much because that manager was actually pretty scummy in the long run, and she lost the majority of her employees about a week after I was fired. I was 16 and working as a dishwasher at a summer tennis camp at an exclusive tennis club. The owner of the club was upset that I hadn't taken all the trash out. I explained to him that the dumpster was full and overflowing. He told me that I needed to climb into the dumpster and jump up and down on the trash to create more room in it. I said that I wouldn't do it. He told me that he wouldn't ask me to do anything that he wouldn't do himself, so I said fine. I want to see you climb into the dumpster and start jumping up and down. He fired me on the spot. Edit. For those of you that agreed with the owner, you should really check up on how Usher and the health department would feel about this. After graduating from grad school, I was having trouble finding jobs in my chosen career. I ended up applying to retail jobs just to get an income. I got hired at Old Navy, went through training, and even had 1 to 2 shifts. Then I got hired in my chosen career. Great. I went and told one of my managers, who was totally cool with it. Understood. And even said I might be able to stay on part-time and help out during the holidays. Cool. Next shift, I have to tell the other manager that I got a new job. I just clocked in to start work. Told this manager. And she tells me I can leave. I clock back out. Wasn't even allowed to work that shift. I barely knew her. But just from the short interactions I had with her, she seemed like a bitch. One of my first jobs was working for this bucket telesales operation. We were selling long distance plans. They would change the fee structure and resell the same plan under a different name to the same customers. I went 1 week top of the sales chart weekly bonus. Next week I was at the bottom. This was the 2nd or 3rd week out of the training program as well. Ranking came out, they pulled me into the office and canned me for poor performance. I always thought it was cause I walked in on them pulling names and numbers from different state phone books. They didn't have my final check ready that day. Next Monday when I called in to make sure they had it, someone I didn't recognize answered but told me to come down for my check. Turns out they got raided for that whole scammy plan bit. I had a brief interview with an FBI agent. They handed me my final check and that place got closed down. Apparently I missed out on a who crazy entry scene when they came in the front and the back to grab the management team. I got fired from Borders because the person that was covering for me while I was on vacation got fired. What's even more messed up, I didn't even find out directly from them. Jose's girlfriend, she also worked there, texted me saying, "Hey, Jose got fired and you should probably call them because they have been expecting you." I called and store manager was like, "Yes. You're terminated. You can come and pick up your last check." I didn't even bother arguing because I was gonna give my 2 weeks notice when I got back anyway because I was sick of their bullshit. Jokes on them. They went out of business. Worked in a stockroom, of a large cheap clothing company. I was around 15/16 I think. It was the most boring mind-killing job involving moving boxes, unpacking boxes, unloading trucks, packing boxes, boxes and more boxes. It was mostly teenagers working to earn some pocket money. You try stuff to make the shift go faster. I brought my MP3 player one day so I could listen to some music through headphones. But that wasn't allowed. So the intercom radio kept playing the same songs over and over. I think it was Scissor Sisters, "I Don't Feel Like Dancing," and James Morrison, "You Give Me Something." Anyways, one early Saturday morning shift I was working with a colleague my age. We had to unpack a load of carts with boxes. You know how kids are. We started messing around, throwing the boxes to each other like volleyballs. A manager walked by and sent us to his office. We were told to leave and to not come back. It was a good day. I worked there for 3 months and I hated every second of it. Operations manager here. On the day of the Christmas dinner for the company, I texted one of the new employees who didn't show up at the restaurant we were having dinner at. This new employee was with us for 2 months and was hired even after having bad reviews from previous employees. But still thought I will give him a chance because we were in a pinch. His previous employer said he has issues getting to work or getting to work on time. He had no driver license. So I asked one of the other employees with company vehicle to pick him up in the morning. And sometime he literally had to wake him up. Coming back to the day of the Christmas dinner, he replied back saying that he will need roughly 38% raise from his current salary. Otherwise he is quitting. Because this other company offered him a job. I thanked him for his time with us and enjoyed rest of my evening. Couple of months later he called begging for his job back. And you all know what my answer was. In high school my friend, whose nickname was Weed, was scratching his balls with his hand down inside his pants while flipping burgers at MCD's. The manager stepped around the corner, saw him and fired him in seconds. Edit. Owner. Not manager. Good. Not me. But I witnessed it. Guy not only fired, but they had cops on site to escort him out. He was let go for a multitude of reasons. 1. Clocked in via phone. Proceeds to show up 1 hour after his shift starts. Then leaves hour early and clocks out via phone. 2. New access codes to vending machines so he was stealing change out of them. Not all of it, but enough for discrepancies to be noticed. 3. Put paper towels on light bulbs in the bathroom. Stuffed paper towels down sink in break room. So he could be the hero who noticed this stuff prior to it causing a disaster. 4. General disrespect of fellow employees. 5. Taking advantage of lax OT policies and not actually working the OT. This just happened. Was working for a small startup with an absolute CNT of a boss. He would yell, demand 110% from his employees while he could barely afford to pay us. Paychecks were never on time, and would constantly demean me. He was an all-around misogynist. I talked back one time. He asked me, "How often are you on time to work?" I responded, "How often do we get paid on time?" And the next day he texted me to bring my keycard and keys to work and fired me. Good riddance. I've never felt better. It seriously felt like I was released from prison. I was already quitting. Put in my 30 days when working for an IT consulting firm. While I was allocated to work in a financial institution. I hated it there, had been there for 3 months. But I had been working for the consulting firm for 1.5 and got a much better offer to move up to project management. Which was an amazing step for me. The financial institution was notified that I had put in my 30 days during my lunch hour by the consulting firm. I was told I could leave when I came back from lunch. The consulting firm let me go as well since they wouldn't need me for anything else just for those 30 days. Which was cool. I called my new boss and he told me I could start sooner if I wanted to. Took a 1-week vacation between jobs and then started. I saw someone get fired on the spot because he said he wanted to rage FCK a co-worker of ours. He was an idiot. I've never been fired for anything, laid off since they were closing a department though. But I got someone fired on the spot. As a kid I went to the library on my bike and it got stolen. Months later I see it in the back of a Friendly's near the employee parking. I called the police since I had already filed a report with them. Easy to identify since it had some pretty unique features like a custom valve cap I found once and the handbrake on the left side didn't work. Police asked the manager if he knew who came in on the bike and he said it was one of his cooks. They informed him it was stolen from me, so the manager called him over and berated him pretty badly while they put cuffs on him and promised to call all the other local restaurants so they don't hire him. Pretty sure he said, "I knew you were a f***ing loser but stealing a kid's bike? Really? You're like 25, you prick." I worked in a medical office, trying to be vague about specialty, and the doctor was doing horrifically illegal things that were putting patients at risk for damages and disease. Things like having unlicensed employees performing duties that they shouldn't and not practicing proper hand washing instrument sterilization act. Not to mention the doctor was rude and would frequently yell at staff. During my employment I brought attention to things that were being done and confronted the doctor in front of the rest of the staff. She fired me on the spot. I had been keeping record of infractions as they were revealed. A lot of the more awful things were hush hush and turned the office into the Attorney General in my state. Just a few weeks ago I found out that the doctor has been telling people that I was fired for trying to recruit people into a cult. I'm an atheist,